Happy Halloween, everybody. Um, if you were watching this, it means that it is October 31st, which means it is officially Halloween. And to celebrate the Halloween spirit, I thought I would do something a bit different on the podcast today. As you can tell, I'm not dressed in like my normal attire, so to speak. I decided to kind of get into a little bit of a costume as well. I don't know who I'm really supposed to be, but I know that I was trying to go for like a 2010 Lady Gaga poker face style thing, hence kind of like the hair and a little bit of where the makeup was influenced by. So there's that. If you're wondering who I'm supposed to be dressed up as, just know that I tried to be 2010 Lady Gaga, but specifically the poker face version of her. We also have like some of these fake nails that you can glue on, or not glue on, but you can kind of like peel or tape onto your fingers. So I'm wearing these to kind of to get into the Halloween and spooky spirit as well. I've never worn fake nails before, so this feels weird. So in mad respect to all the people who out there who love fake nails and who can wear like fake nails for long periods of time. I literally just put these on, so I've been wearing them for maybe 5 minutes maximum, and already they feel weird. So we'll see how I can get through an entire episode of this with these nails. But I hope you guys are having a fun Halloween. If you guys celebrate Halloween at all, I hope it's fun. I hope you guys enjoy just kind of the spirit and the tradition of it. And today, we're we don't have any main episodes. We don't have a coffee talk. We don't have life advice. We don't even have anything sports related. To celebrate the Halloween spirit, I thought it would be kind of a fun idea to read some scary short stories that I found online through Reddit. Reading is one of my hobbies. I love to read books. I also love to write stuff. So short stories definitely fit into my realm of interests. I found a few of them on Reddit today that we'll read. They're not very long, hence short stories. I know people are kind of afraid or triggered by scary stuff. I did skim through the stories that I wanted to read ahead of time, so I kind of know what's up. But if you're not into scary stuff or scary stuff freaks you out, I would advise not watching this episode specifically, and just find other stuff to watch on the web or listen to on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts now. So we're going to get right into it. I don't want to make this a very long episode. I'm trying to stick within a time frame now. I usually don't want to exceed more than 40 minutes. And with these short stories, I don't think we'll go past the 40-minute mark, but we'll see. Now I just have to pull up the story to read. Hold on a sec, guys. I'm gonna pull it up. All right, so the first story, it's called Cuckoo Baby from Sunshine Dreaming, and you can find it under the subreddit r short scary stories. So here we go. First story. She was on the ship when the baby came. She was enchanted by how perfect he was, his tiny fingers and translucent skin so different from her own. From the very first day, his eyes were a bright blue. Every moment with her little one was a celebration. After a time, she began to notice that her baby wasn't growing like the other children. Theirs walked when hers still crawled. Theirs talked while hers still babbled. A shadow fell over her optimism. Something was wrong with her baby. What had started out as such an exciting new venture suddenly felt like a drag. She started to feel ashamed and said nothing when the other mothers praised the development achievements of their own young. When the baby cried, she resented changing him. When he wailed in the night, she let him cry. When he spit up milk, she grew frustrated. The other children were already eating solid foods. Discreetly, in the middle of the day, she slipped from her apartment and went to see the doctor. She held out the sniveling infant when he came into the examination room. I don't want him anymore. I think he might be defective. Defective? The doctor rolled his chair closer. Let me take a look. He scanned the barcode on the baby's foot and reviewed the corresponding logs on the computer screen. Well, I'm not supposed to tell you this. You have one of the controls. A control? Yes. There's nothing wrong with them. Just a regular human baby. She looked down at the child, uncertain, and then back at the doctor. He patted her hand reassuringly. They just develop so much slower than we do. And that's the end of the first story. So I don't think it was that scary. It was just her baby wasn't really fully developed as some of these other babies were. So she thought the baby might have been a robot, took it to the doctor, and then the doctor was all like, no, your baby is human, perfectly healthy. Some babies just take longer to develop than others. I didn't really feel that scared by reading the story when I first saw it, and I just scratched my leg with my long nails by accident. But some of these stories, I think, for people who are into kind of scary stories like me, there is a bunch of variety stuff out there. So it doesn't have to be restricted to just one genre of a scary short story. Like what we just read, I didn't think it was that scary. Maybe it's scary to other people who can relate to it to a certain degree. Me personally, I can't relate to that story, but I still felt something with it. So I think that's what made the story kind of interesting to me, at least. Let's move on to the second story. Can pull it up with my, again, nails, which I apologize for. So that was Cuckoo Baby. The next story. The title caught my attention, which is why I chose it. I was scrolling through trying to find stories that I wanted to read, and then I saw this title, and I'm like, ooh, that sounds interesting. And it caught my attention very quickly. So we're gonna do it. My nails are like really making this. Here we go. Hard. This story comes from the real Doc Turner, and it's called The Lodophile and the Telltale Fart. I was in truth nervous, a slight twinge in the stomach, but I was not mad. No ailment unseen lurking with my conscience, no regret, no nary, a shadow of unasked repentance crying out to be given validation. Rufus Griswold, my husband for just shy of 50 years, lay in a coffin, propped underneath a gray wooden cross, adorned with the gaudy plastic likeness of the carpenter of Nazareth. My husband's face now polished to a fine artificial shine, just as the suspended Savior that he frequently knelt underneath. Hundreds wept within, and I found myself struggling to shed even the slightest semblance of grief. I killed my husband, to be sure, but I did love him. I felt no guilt about the dark affair, nor did any malicious inflict my spirit as I gently held my pillow to his face whilst he slept. Once the dark deed was done, I nestled myself against him in great comfort, knowing that it would be the final time I felt his warmth in this life. I, like hundreds of people, knew my husband to be a wonderful man, given and contemplative about others, the lights of which is rare today. It was the flatulence, you see, wild, bombastic bouts of anal atrocities that had been afflicted upon me for almost half a century. For as gorgeous as he was to everyone he came across in public, he was equally liberal and lavish when he let her rip in private. With waning hours in front of us and the bolt of it all behind. I decided to continue on alone, unburdened by what had been, and hopeful at the thought of the fresh air I still had yet to breathe. The words of the priest were but a small buzz in my ears. The time crept by, and all I could think of was my warm blanket and the seduction of words by Joyce. Suddenly, I heard a familiar noise. A gargantuan volley of gas spewed forth from the coffin. The priest continued. Not a soul seemed to notice. I thought it imagined, and just as I had calmed from the conjured clap, another pernicious poot emerged. With sweat-slit temples, I leaned forward. A moment of silence as the priest turned a page, and then another violent onslaught, a sputtering, spoiled chorus that transformed the comforting sense of the church into nothing but turned cheese. He was alive. I had been tricked, and I was mocked. Everyone knew, yet no one would acknowledge the now constant rectal recital being played by Rufus's rear. The reek and squeaks grew far too great to bear. I sprung from my seat and grabbed a gilded candelabra. With swift blows, I went to work on his face. Mock me, will you? If my pillow to your face couldn't quell the ceaseless sonatas from your acrid arse, then perhaps this will. Die, you bastard. As I finished, I saw the slack-jawed expressions of everyone. Well, shoot. There you go. Story number 2. I don't see, I saw the title at first and thought it was a pretty interesting title. So I clicked and I skimmed through it briefly. I think that was the first time I had actually read that story, closely from start to finish. And, the telltale art, which in turn just really means the telltale fart, but it kind of got funny towards the end. It did start off kind of a little bit scary at the beginning, but what I liked about that story was that it had a clear beginning, middle, and end. And that's what I feel like all stories should be. It should have a clear beginning, it should have a clear middle, and it should have a clear end. Otherwise, it's not really a story. Stories are meant to take you on a journey, however short or long it may be, and then you kind of let the reader or the consumer in and allow them to feel that story along with you. I think stories also do well depending on how they are written. Some authors like to write short stories like this one, where it's maybe 1 or 2 pages long. And then there's other writers out there who just thrive by going page after page after page and crafting a full-on book. And there's some writers who just love to do poetry. There's many different types of poetry out there. I've been reading some poetry books. I have a few poetry books in my room that I've been really enjoying. And poetry is I'm just discovering it the more I read it, but poetry is just one of the most abstract and well crafted pieces of art that I have seen and that I have read. It is impeccable. Edgar Allan Poe is one of my favorite poets of all time. I know he has the famous poem, The Raven, which I think is very well written. And that itself is kind of dark too. But even like William Shakespeare, even though I don't think we can call him a poet, more like a playwright, the plays and stuff that he has written, I look up to a lot as well. I've been getting more into Shakespeare stuff recently, reading all of his works. So that's been fun. But I hope you guys enjoyed the logo file and the telltale art. I had a blast reading it. We only have 2 more stories left. Oops, I forgot I can't really minimize through Zoom here. So I'm gonna pull up the next story, which is called The Owl. Might take me a minute. Here we go. The Owl, and this comes from Of the Ash, the author of the post. The Owl. The first few times the woman came, Nightwing had flown. The noises startled him more than the intrusion into his home. After all, humans were groundbound. His perch high in the rafters was safe from the interlopers. It was an excuse to get out and hunt anyway. He'd long ago picked over all the mice and the other tidbits that had inhabited the barn he claimed as his. Now, her comings and goings did nothing to disturb him short of waking him up from his day's sleep. He opened an eye and ruffled his feathers. Barn owls are not, by nature, deep thinkers. They root out their prey, catch it, eat it, sleep, and try to avoid becoming prey themselves. The woman, though, was curious. She killed, but she didn't seem to eat. The men who she brought were interesting too. They appeared to be eager to be led to slaughter. The males that came with her smelled heavily of lust as they approached the building, but their scents quickly turned to the acrid scent of fear he was accustomed to for prey. Nightwing had begun to analyze humans, for killing without purpose didn't happen often in his world. Observing the people made him more curious about other animals, too. Sure, animals like felines played with their prey like the woman did with the men she bought, but they still usually ate their kills. Other humans didn't seem to kill each other as she did either. They yelled and sometimes fought physically, but nothing died. It was somewhat disappointing, for human meat tasted quite good, as he'd discovered. Darcy wiped her brow. She glanced at the only witness to her deeds, a large barn owl who always seemed to watch her. Another one bit the dust. Another girl avenged. She wondered what the bird of prey thought of her. They were both hunters, after all. She sliced a strip of flesh with her pocket knife, as was her tradition, and tossed it to her avian companion, who gobbled it up. She sometimes worried about herself. Wasn't she a serial killer after all? Shouldn't she feel guilty? She looked down at the body of the murdered man. Nothing. No empathy, sympathy, or any of those normal emotions one should feel for someone who had a chainsaw shoved in their guts. Do you know the original purpose of the chainsaw? She laughed. Exactly who was she talking to? The dead dude who cut up his girlfriend after she refused to service him and then hurt her for 3 days? Why did he care? He was dead. She looked up to the owl. Do you know the answer? She thought it was a he, hooted in response. She looked back down at the mangled man. It was to cut a woman's pelvic bone and remove an infant quickly. Poetic, eh? He hooted again. She took that as agreement. Better bury the body. Nightwing took flight. It was time to hunt again. This one is a little bit darker, you know, with the owl. That was a pretty dark story. Again, I thought it had a good beginning. The middle kind of lost me. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like it was full of great detail, but she kind of lost me in the middle there. But I think coming back to the end, the author, whoever wrote it, did a great job wrapping the story up and really drawing the reader back in again. I have read books like that. I'm big into true crime. I love true crime stuff. I have some true crime. You can't really call them true crime books, but I'm reading books that deal with a lot of stuff in the criminal justice system and policing, all that sort of thing. And one of the books that I am reading right now is a book called Killer Psychopaths. It's the inside story of criminal profiling and what it basically talks about. I'm not going to show the book because I don't want to scare people away because it is a pretty it's a pretty terrifying cover picture, but the book itself talks about the serial killers or like sociopaths, psychopaths, however you want to describe them, but what led them to commit the crimes that they did? Was it part of their childhood growing up? Was it because of a mental health issue or diagnosis? Or was it just being excluded from groups in their school years, that sort of stuff? It's a very fascinating read. I'm not done with the entire book quite yet, but I am more than halfway through. And I can tell you that I've been kind of re-evaluating and rethinking the ways that I view criminals in the world now today, because you never know what someone is going through in their personal life. Now, obviously, this is a fictional story. At least that's what I am interpreting it as. This is a fictional story with fictional characters, but the truth of the matter is, this woman did commit murder. She committed a crime, and she doesn't really feel guilty for it. And that's kind of those are some traits of well-known psychopaths, sociopaths, and serial killers, where you don't feel any real emotion after doing something that you know is wrong. There is the great debate, however, between a psychopath and a sociopath. I know criminologists and psychologists, sociologists have debated that too. Like, what is the difference separating them? And I can tell you now, from what I remember, that a sociopath is more of a person who deals with antisocial personality disorder to that kind of degree, or multiple personality disorder. And then psychopaths are more of the psychological aspect of stuff up there in the brain. So there's a little history for you right there. We have time for one more story that I'm going to pull up. And this story is called "I Just Wanted to Save the World." And the title stood out to me there too, because I feel like it's one we all can kind of relate to in our lives. So this is "I Just Wanted to Save the World" from Haunting Buyer 8532. In the day, it was fine to look at the moon. You would just feel your eyes streaming. During the night, when it was always full, it was lethal. One of my good friends looked at the glow of the moon. He was found floating 5 feet off the ground. His liquefied intestines burst from his stomach, its slurry forming fractal shapes. His eyes rotted until they were lumps of dried flesh. All the while, he was smiling. "I love you," he kept repeating. We all but know he was talking to the moonlight. Half the world's population already went like him. You see why I was so desperate to stop this apocalypse? Desperation is a tool. It helps you consider things you never would in a trillion years. My mom was a lunatic. She kept claiming the universe was talking to her. She wrote her rambling in some of her notebooks before she was trucked to the asylum. She saw the moon. I just keep those books in some vain attempt to remember her. Some of her scribblings were rituals. One of them claimed you could bargain with something outside of reality for anything you wished. Desperation is the key. The outsider only answers to the desperate. I prepared the circle. I said the incantation. I burned the flowers. Took nearly half an hour. My awareness was snapped elsewhere. It was avoid the color of your closed eyes. Please, I begged. The moonlight is killing people. Stop it. The void whispered. 8 minutes. My mind was flung back into reality. Through the closed curtains, I could still see the muffled moonlight. I turned my head away when my eyes started aching. Why 8 minutes? Desperation is a curse. It takes away your wits. It takes away the voice in your head that says, this never works out if you think hard enough. Two facts every schoolboy knows slam themselves in my thoughts. Light from the sun takes 8 minutes to reach Earth. The moon's light is actually just the moon reflecting sunlight. I looked at the clock. 7 minutes till the world goes dark. That one was probably my favorite story out of the four. Just the way it was written, it had good I won't even say dialogue because you don't really hear the narrator like actually speaking vocally, but you still got words and you still got some dialogue, I guess, of what was going on inside of their minds. And I think we all can feel trapped in desperation to save people or save the world to a degree, especially with how things are panning out today. I'll tell you right now, we are only 4 years into the 2020s. And at the beginning of 2020, we were in a global pandemic and lockdown. So 4 years to me has gone by really fast. Others, it might have gone by very slow. I guess I kind of feel a combination of both, but the 2020s is already much different than it was in the 2010s. And that's scary to a degree. We're seeing more advancements in AI nowadays. We're seeing more advancements in technology. The world is kind of dividing, and then there's countries fighting for equality and for food and war, wherever it might be amongst the seven continents across Earth. It's scary. It's terrifying. I don't know what the world is going to look like in 10 years when we reach 2030, 2034. I know there's big plans for what the world will turn out to be like in the year 2050, which is still quite a bit of a ways away, but not really that far away if you really think about it. But out of those four stories, I would have to say I Just Wanted to Save the World was probably my favorite one out of the four, but I enjoyed all four of them. I hope those weren't too scary for you guys. Again, I tried to pick ones that I felt were interesting, but also didn't want to scare people away. I'll put some trigger warnings in the description box just so you can be aware of what stories we'll be reading and such. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for listening to me read some scary short stories. I hope you guys have a safe and fun Halloween. If you guys go trick or treating, whatever, just be safe, be cautious out there. And who knows? I'm trying to guess what's gonna be the most common Halloween outfit this year. And to be honest, I truly don't know because I am just a pop culture figure singer from the 2010s and Lady Gaga. But thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for listening. I hope you'll stay tuned for some more episodes that will come out in November. I'm not actually recording this on Halloween. The day the video comes out will be Halloween. It's actually just I'm recording this the week before Halloween. I'm trying to get ahead of schedule here. I already filmed another previous episode today, so I've been in I've had to change outfits twice. I'm pretty sure that episode would have been out already by the time this comes out. But yeah, I filmed week 8 bull predictions, which should be up already. I'll film another week 9 bull predictions, which will probably come out before the Halloween episode comes out, but they won't be far apart in terms of uploading and such. But you can stay tuned to that. I have plans for November. Keep them under wraps right now, though, so you guys can be surprised. But just know that you will be getting new content soon. I'm just a very busy person now with school, with work, with other extracurricular stuff. So I'm trying to balance my priorities at the moment. But I still have plans for this podcast, and I'm excited to show you guys what those plans are in a couple of months to come. So with that, we will conclude the Halloween Reddit Stories episode, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.